Gentlemen, ladies, folks, Sandamtod here, back again with a There Can Be Only Five. This time we're going to do the Genesis. Don't know if it'll be as interesting. I hope it is. But you might be surprised with the games I picked based on the games I picked on the Nintendo and what I said about certain types of games. But this all comes back to whatever time in my life I bought these and how I remember them and how much fun I had, and that's why I chose them. Actually, one of these I'm kind of yeah on, but at the same time, it's like the real deal is that when I bought my Genesis, I bought it when I was 18 years old. The summer of 1993, so it had been out a couple years, and the packing game was Sonic 2, and I bought a couple other games. I think I bought one other game with it at that time, and it's actually not in this 5, and I agonized over whether I should put it in it or not. And then I bought, it seemed like I went on a tear where I was just buying a bunch of fighting games. It seems like back in 93, it was like fighting games out the ass, you know. It's like Street Fighter 2 had hit, and Mortal Kombat was a big success. And it's like they were putting out everything, you know, Turtles Tournament Fighters, Eternal Champions, Fatal Fury was out, Pit Fighter, you know, so many. I mean, there's even more on other consoles that were out at this similar time. And I bought quite a few of these, like, fighting games back then because they were 2-player, and that way at least, you know, if I wanted to play with my uncle who I was living with at the time, or my cousin, even though he was like 10 years younger than me, so he was only like 8 years old, we could play 2-player, and at least, you know, and then I could play the regular tournament mode, you know, by myself. So I bought quite a few of these fighting games, and then I didn't have my Genesis more than about 3 or 4 months before I bought a Super Nintendo, because I think I discussed it before, because I had seen Super Metroid at a kiosk thing where you press the button and they kind of do like a mini little video on it and show like some gameplay and talk about it a little bit. And I had seen this Super Metroid one, and the game just looked so awesome to me that it basically was a console buyer for me. We're not going to talk about that right now, though, because we would probably have to touch on that again on the Super Nintendo one. So it was like 3 or 4 months, and then I was buying games for both consoles and at that time. And so I was kind of picking and choosing, and it's like it seemed like at that time, because I had the Nintendo was the newer of the 2 consoles, I was buying more games for it and less for the Genesis. So to be honest, I really only bought about 12 or 14 games for the Genesis back in the day, before I got back into retro collecting and bought the majority of what I own now, which isn't a huge collection, but it's nice in my opinion. And another factor was within the year I bought this sounds crazy, but within the year, or yeah, I think it was the next year after I got my taxes done and got my money back and stuff, I bought a Sega CD add-on for the Genesis. So once I bought the Sega CD, I really didn't buy cartridge games for the Genesis anymore. I was buying the Sega CD games, and I was so caught up in the technology and the games on the Sega CD that I just didn't really care about buying cartridge games for the Genesis. And because of that, I don't have a huge collection or a lot of nostalgia with these. There are some that I finished, and, you know, actually it is in here. Never mind. I'll get to it in a second. I was going to say that first game I bought with the console wasn't in this stack, but actually it is. Actually, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I always get confused in the order I bought these two games, but I know they were the first two games I bought for the Genesis, so. Off track. Anywho, so once I bought the Sega CD, it was all about the Sega CD, and I really stopped buying even for the Nintendo. And to be fair, in that time frame with the Super Nintendo, I bought quite a few fighting games for it as well. So it was just the time, that the early 90s seemed like just saturated with fighting games. So this is kind of what I decided, and as my 5, and we'll do it in a little bit of an order. Yeah, we might as well do it in the order that I kind of remember getting them. Okay, so we'll come back to the game that I originally bought with the Genesis when I bought it. And it was like one of the very first, I mean, I worked summers for my grandmother. They owned like a diner out in this small town. And I worked summers for them and would bank, you know, money. And then over the course of the year, I would, you know, use it for things that I needed over the course of the year or wanted. But, you know, primarily, that was my money. I didn't really ever have a job in high school, and there are reasons behind that. But other than going out and working for my grandmother for 2 or 3 months in the summer. So my first job I ever got was, outside of the family, was at this Hardee's restaurant, Carl's Jr., it's known as in some parts of the country. And it's funny because real recently I've been watching a bunch of videos, people talking about their horrible job experiences at either GameStop or Walmart or whatever. And I kind of got off track on watching a couple other of these guys' channels and their discussions and talking about working these jobs. And it really kind of brought back into mind the 2 years I spent working at this. It might have been about 2.5 years working at this Hardee's before I started working where I do now. And the job that I have now is a nice, it's always been a nice work environment. I always felt like I made decent money. It's not overly taxing on your body or anything, because I do, graphic art and work on a computer most of the day. But I don't really have any good stories from it because I've worked with the same salespeople pretty much, and a lot of the hourly people have worked there for 10, 15 years as well. So there's not a lot of turnover. There's not a lot of new people coming in and out. There's not a lot of change in that work environment. But in that 2 years that I worked at the Hardee's, it was so chaotic, but I enjoyed it to a degree. I hated it and loved it at the same time, and I'll talk about that in a different video. I want to do like an kind of a flashback or discussing some of that, but I don't have any nightmare stories like these guys are talking about. I have a lot of good memories of it. So we'll talk about Hardee's in another episode. It's the only other job I've ever really had other than working at this printing company. But so I got my first paycheck from this Hardee's and I bought the Genesis. And I had graduated high school, so I got a lot of like congratulations, kind of graduation money, from people and cards and stuff. So I had quite a bit of money, I felt, at the moment. So I went out and bought this Genesis, and I bought this game with it. And all these games you've seen, I've done a Genesis collection before, but I'm pretty sure this is the game I bought with it. If not, it's the other one, and I'll tell you what it is, and it's not in this stack. But I believe this is the one I bought, and it's because it was 2-player. It wasn't a fighting game, and it was actually a side scroller, and it just I think I had rented this, and it was really we rented it from Price Chopper Video. Price Chopper is a grocery store here in the Midwest chain, and they used to have video stores inside the place, you know. And so I think I rented it, checked it out, and then I was like, yeah, I'm going to buy this game. So I ended up picking up, I believe I bought it with it, but if not, I bought the other one. I know that these were the first 2 games I bought for the system, and that would be X-Men. Now this one, actually Clone Wars is probably a little better of a game, but X-Men was 2-player. It was just so superior to anything I had played on the regular Nintendo and stuff at that time, and still has a special edition poster. Well, we still have that special edition poster. We never hung it up, and we left it in here. It's got some maps on the back for the game, which is cool. And then the poster itself. I try to take the best care of it as I can. I don't really unfold it very often. And then the cartridge and the actual instruction book, you know. I love the Genesis games coming in these hard shell cases too, compared to the Nintendo games, because it was basically a storage device for your system. Color cover, but black and white. Actually, people would probably hate me, but I wrote in here how to do the stage select in the back of the book, in the notes. And so if I was going to resell this, people would probably be like, hey, you wrote it. Well, at that time, and still to this day, it's in my collection and will be. So, I love this game. It was interesting. Never beat it. I will say that. I've never beaten it, and the reason why is for a long time I got stuck on the Mojo level. Although there is a stage select, I still never beat it. But I didn't hear about the stage select until later on, after I had played this and gotten so frustrated and stuck on it. Because there's this level called Mojo World or something, and Mojo's the end boss. But you have to destroy the system or reset the system on the level, is what they say. So you get to the end of this area, and you basically get locked in this like room with a computer, and you hit the computer thing on the wall, and it says, now reset the system. And you're just like wandering around. There's nothing in this room. And what they meant when they said reset the system was hit the reset button on your goddamn Genesis. And there's no way anybody would know this. You would just probably get frustrated or pissed off and finally push it, you know, one time eventually. It's like they wanted to piss you off enough to where eventually you would hit it. But I always got stuck there and was like, fuck this, and would just turn the game off, and I never knew how to get by it. So later on, I think I read something in a magazine that, or no, I might have accidentally done it. Like I said, accidentally hit the reset button one time because I was so like pissed off that I always got stuck in this one area, and it did like this binary O's and ones, kind of almost like Matrix style thing on the screen, and then it would go into the next level. And that frustration, but also the time I spent playing this and remembering how cryptic that was, this game holds a deep place in my heart. It was one of the first 2 that I ever bought. And like I said, the other one that I bought, either first or second, and I'm pretty sure I bought this one first, was Street Fighter II Championship Edition for the Genesis. Alright, so the next game, I know I've told this story before. People are probably like, God dang, you know, there's only 12 people that watch your videos anyway, and you always repeat the same stories. But, this game I actually got it a week before it was supposed to be released, and I pissed off so many people. And the reason why it was is because this game was hyped. I mean, big time hyped. And there were so many people that had pre-ordered it at different places. GameStop didn't exist. It was like Babbage's and a couple other places you could place pre-orders or order it online, and they'd ship it to you once it came out. Not online, but like order it through a service. You could call these places or I don't even, back in 93, I mean, going online was, I don't think you went online. It was like you had to call this place and place the pre-order, and they would send it to you once it came out. And I remember I was buying like Electronic Gaming Monthly and Game Pro and a few other books at that time. And I remember seeing it, but I'd never played it at the arcade. I really didn't understand the whole hype around it. But I was going to college, and I had a couple classes with some guys that I knew from high school that were going to the community college. And one of them was this psychology class, and I think I got like a C in it. And there was 3 or 4 dudes in there, and they were so hyped. They were waiting for this game to come out, and all they could do was talk about it. It seemed like, and I really didn't know that much about it. But I, went over to Walmart. The Walmart was literally like a stone's throw from my house that I was staying in at the time, and so I think sometime between, because I was going to class Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Somewhere in that time frame, I went over to the Walmart between two days that I had school, and was looking through some of their games, and they had that glass case that had like the glass front, and it was like black inside, and they had all these games hanging on pegs, and then they slid shut and locked. And I went over there and I was looking at the games and stuff, and I noticed on the floor they had a couple of boxes of stock that were sitting on the floor, and like they were stocking this case, and the top box was cut open, and I could see inside this box that this game that these kids were so hyped about. And like I said, I had bought the Gaming Monthly and stuff at that point, and I read something about it. So I was kind of intrigued, but I wasn't like hyped like they were. And I noticed that this game was in there, in this box. And the guy walked over, that was working in that electronic department at the Walmart at the time, and was like, can I help you? And I go, well, I was looking in this case. I was thinking about getting a game. I said, are these games down here, are they for sale? Kind of like that. And he goes, well, I don't know. And he goes, I'll take it up to the counter. He goes, if we scan it and it's already in the queue, like in the thing that checks the UPC code, and it comes up with a price, then yeah, they're ready to sell it. So I went up to the counter with the guy, and the guy takes it up there. He scans it, and it took a couple of seconds, but a price came up. And he goes, well, it's going to cost this much. And I go, I'll go ahead and take it. And the game wasn't supposed to be released, to the public until that following week. And they were just getting their stock in and getting it ready so they could sell it the following week. But this guy went ahead and sold me a copy. And I went home and I looked at my Game Pro and found a couple of codes for it, because I knew I had read some codes for it and stuff. And I played it for a day and a half, and then I actually took the game with me to school and took it in there and showed the guys. And it was like a Wednesday or a Friday before it was supposed to come out the following week. And they were like, how the fuck did you get this? And I told them how I got it. And they were like, this game's not even supposed to be out yet. He goes, I've had mine pre-ordered for like 3 months. Da-da-da-da. And I was like, hey, lucky, I guess, So the game, and it's the only fighting game in this stack, is the original Mortal Kombat. These guys were so hyped for this game. And like I said, I bought a lot of fighting games back then. But this game, I mean, just the story behind it, that I got it, you know, a week before it was even supposed to come out. And then the level, the blood and the fatalities, I'd never seen anything like this in a video game at that time. And it's funny because it was like one of the games that inspired this rating system, you know, in a way. And it was so awesome. And I have such memory with that I just gotta hold on to it. And it's still fun to play through with the original, like, what is there, 7 people? And I still really enjoy it. And so those two, and we're getting close to 21 minutes now. This game, I actually don't see an ESRB rating on it, which is kind of crazy. Maybe this game came out right before. No, I don't know. I don't remember. It must have. I don't know. I thought I was doing these in order, but maybe I'm not. So, because all these other ones, well, if you look close, this game doesn't have an one of the ESRB ratings on it either, the X-Men. So, this game and then this one here must have came out before they started the rating system, because these other 3 haven't. So actually, this game that I'm getting ready to show probably came out before the Mortal Kombat. So I might have, just because it came out before it doesn't mean I bought it before it, but something makes me think I must have, because I bought this sucker brand new. I mean, there was a role-playing series that I really dug, called Phantasy Star. At the time, I had played some of the Phantasy Star on the Master System, and I had seen all these reviews and these books and all the ads for these games, and they're like, you know, hyping, I think at the time it was Phantasy Star 3, really hard. They're like, you can play through 3 generations of characters, you know, and this and that, and it's just like, wow, 3 generations, you know, kind of deal. It just seems so big. And I remember wanting Phantasy Star 3 really bad. And actually, I might have bought this Shining Force game slightly before I bought the Mortal Kombat game, because it was the same year going to college. And my family, my aunt and uncle that I was living with at the time, and believe it or not, I was 18 years old and I did not have my driver's license. And I believe I told that story before, where I got in trouble because I rolled a vehicle when I was 16 years old, and I was really scared to get behind the wheel. It really wasn't that I wasn't able to. I had, you know, I had the ability to drive. I just was always kind of hesitant to get back behind the wheel. It took a little while, so I don't remember where that was going. Anyway, I didn't have a car. That was it. So they were going out to the mall. I think it was the Bannister Mall, which is now closed, and and tore down completely to the ground, and something else has been rebuilt there, so I don't even remember. And I was gonna look for this game. I'm chatty today because I finished the Nintendo one in 30 minutes, but I'm only halfway through these. So I went out to the mall. I go into Babbage's, like I said. That was a big place at that time, and they had, you know, pegboards with games hanging on them on the wall. And they had Phantasy Star 3. And I had the money to get it, and I wanted to get it. And I was like, I actually saw it first and was holding it and thinking about getting it and looking at the other stuff. And then I saw this game. And this one I had just read about in the magazines and stuff, and it was brand new. Phantasy Star 3 had been out a little while. And actually, I didn't end up buying Phantasy Star 3 till later on. I bought it at Funko Land. Do you all remember Funko Land? Yeah, I bought Phantasy Star 3 at Funko Land. And actually, early on when Funko Land came, at least into my city, if they had the game on the wall, like the case, and you took the case up to the counter, they would give you the cartridge and snap it into the case that you brought up there and the instruction book, and you got the whole thing. Later on, it changed to where you would say, okay, you have Phantasy Star 3, and they just like give you the cartridge or whatever, and you didn't get the case. But for a while, they were giving you everything, which was cool, and I did get some stuff there for my Super Nintendo and for the Genesis that later on they would just give you the cart, you know, but I got full versions, actually, which was sweet. So I ended up getting Phantasy Star 3 later on, obviously, because I saw this game, and it was the newest, hottest, you know, role-playing game. And this game actually kept me from going to school for a couple of days. You know, I stayed home for about a full week almost to play it, because I couldn't tear myself away from it at the time. And that game is Shining Force. Shining Force, folks. Shining Force is a role-playing game. You have a party. There were a bunch of hidden characters you would find along the way that you could recruit into your ranks. I loved the actual layouts on the screen where they showed the two characters and it had the screens above and below, and the way they would action fight with each other. They would, you know, do their thing, and then the other guy would do his thing. This is what I always wanted on the Nintendo. On Nintendo, it seemed like you would get the Dragon Warrior would come up, swirl around, there'd be like a window or a black screen with a line of enemies. And Final Fantasy was about the best one, where it had the guys on the side and you would see them kind of move over, do a little magic, and then the big guy would be over there. But this was what I always wanted back in the day. And when I saw this and had read about it, I was like, this is a game that I always wanted and basically was hoping to ever find, you know. And so it was brand new. I don't remember what I paid for it. I do remember what I paid for this next one, oddly enough, because it's the most expensive game I've ever bought that's not a collector's edition or anything. Brand new. But I ended up playing through this whole game. I did not find all of the hidden characters the first time I played through, and I think I played through it twice, and I don't believe I've ever played through it a third time. But if you look close, this game does not have the ESRB rating on it either. So, as you may have heard me say, I believe Mortal Kombat and Night Trap and a couple other games were the reason why the rating system ever even came up. Which I love they put MA13 because this is okay for 13-year-olds, I guess. I think what it was is you had to put in a code to get the blood options and stuff, so because you had to put in the code and it wasn't just on, that you could rate it that way. I don't have the code written down. I believe it's ABACABB. I should write it down and put a little sticky note in here if that is it. The blood code and stuff for this game. I'm going backwards, not forwards. But that role-playing game, Shining Force, still to this day is one of my favorite experiences ever playing a game. It did not feel like a grind or a chore. Later on, the versions of Shining Force 2 I didn't buy because I was buying for the Sega CD, like I said. So I never bought Shining Force 2, and now I kind of regret it at this stage of my life. But, you know, what are you going to do? So, So, played through Shining Force and then got the itch. I was still, at this phase in my life, I still really dug role-playing games, at least through the 16-bit era. And then when, you know, the PlayStation stuff came around and it was this wide open, you know, more of a three-dimensional world as opposed to overhead or side-scrolling, it just, there were so many other types of games at that time to play that I fell away from role-playing games, and I never have really jived with them in their modern incarnation. But this one, because I told you I wanted Phantasy Star 3, I believe I might have bought Phantasy Star 3 in the interim between buying the Shining Force and then getting this by going to Funko Land and stuff like I said. But I remember buying this one. I think it was at Toys R Us, but I don't know. And I know I probably said in another video, if it wasn't at Toys R Us, it was like at the mall again. But something makes me think I remember getting that little paper slip and going up and paying for it and then going up to that security window to get it at Toys R Us at the time. And the reason why, the one thing I do remember about it for sure is I paid what I thought was a crazy amount of money for it at the time, brand new. I mean, because you're talking a brand new game. But this is the only Phantasy Star game I've ever beaten. And it is Phantasy Star 4. And I paid $89.99 for this thing brand new. And yeah, it was a good game. It was an excellent game. And it's a long game. Cast of over 200 different magic specific cast over 200 magic spells, or combine them for even more powerful and devastating effects. Hack through hordes of gruesome monsters that morph into even uglier and deadlier foes. Awesome 3D combat. Toast Dark Force minions from inside. Incredible combat vehicles like the Land Rovers and the Ice Digger. 24 megs of fierce role-playing challenge with battery backup. The largest RPG ever for the Genesis! Exclamation point. Awesome game. It is. I don't know how to describe it. I really didn't feel like I lost anything. Like I said, I think I had played part of Phantasy Star 3, but I really don't feel like I lost anything by not playing all the way through Phantasy Star 3 before I played this. Instruction booklet is just black and white, which, you know, I'm like $89.99 and I get a friggin', and it's in a cardboard box too. It's not in the normal clamshell. But I kept really excellent care of the instructions. And it's funny because on the back of the instruction book, they're advertising for Shining Force 2. The game itself and these cardboard boxes are crap. I mean, really. I taped this one on all the ends to keep it from falling in because it kept wanting to fall apart. And because I have it taped shut, there's like a some inserts or something down in the bottom of it that I can't even get out unless I cut the tape, which isn't a big deal. It's just like a reg card and some other stuff. But and then here's the cartridge itself. $89.99, man. Can't believe it still to this day. I mean, and yeah, I mean, I don't even think buying a collector's edition or anything, other than buying Snatcher when I found it, I have not paid more. But this game was brand new, like I said. But other than buying Snatcher when I found it for $100, this is the most I ever paid for a game out of pocket in one go for just one title. So, awesome game. If you haven't played the Phantasy Star series and you like role-playing games, you should really check it out. Got a little bit of a booger on the front cover where it's starting to kind of got a little booger, but for the most part, it's in pretty good shape. It does have a rating on it. So this fifth game, I was a little torn. And to tell you the truth, I kind of bought it on a whim because I actually, going back to the Hardys, a guy at work had bought it and was telling me about it, and that he really didn't dig it too much, and asked me if I wanted to buy it from him. And I go, I think he wanted like $20 or something. And I mean, it was a fairly new at the time. I mean, it was like a $40, $50 game, and we wanted like $20 for it or something. So I bought it from him. But it's another one of those deals where I just never really got into this series. Well, I'll just go ahead and show the game, and then I'll talk about it. So anyway, the game that I bought off this guy at work, his name was, what was his name? I don't remember his real name. We called him Goon. I don't remember his real name. I think it was Daniel, but we called him Goon. So I bought this game from Goon for $20, and the game is Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And I kind of was torn on this because really I played Sonic the Hedgehog 2 more than this one, so I'm more familiar with it. But I've never beaten any of them. So the thing about this one, though, is it has a battery in it, and it'll save in between stages, so you don't have to play it in one shot. You can like play, you know, a stage or two stages at a time and work your way through it. And it had like the I think it was like a snowboarding thing on it, and there was just a couple of different things that really made it unique to me. I mean, I remember Sonic 2 and getting the different shields you could get and stuff. Once again, we have the color cover with the black and white guts, which I don't mind too bad. At least the cover is color. But the reason why this one really got the nod over Sonic 2 was because of the save feature, being able to play it, you know, a little bit at a time and not have to sit down and like really dedicate some time to getting through it, because you could play a little bit and then save it after you beat a stage, you know, or whatever. So those are my 5. That's the 5 I chose for the Genesis. And to tell you the truth, it wasn't really that difficult of a decision. Leaving Street Fighter 2 out was a little bit of a, you know, hard cut, but, you know, who knows? It could pop up in one of these other series in another form, so you never know. But outside of these, there were a couple games. I mean, I liked Comic Zone, which I do have, but I bought it later on. Like I said, Ghostbusters is a good game. Like I said, I got a cartridge-only copy, and later fashioned a cover for it. Mine is really just a cartridge. I don't have an instruction book for it, and I printed the cover art. I found, you know, some art online that people, you know, had scammed or whatever, and I printed a cover and put it on there. So technically the cover's not, you know, original on the original paper. It's the original cover art. It's just not on the original paper. And then I'm trying to think of a couple other games that really could have, you know, the Phantasy Star 3 as well. I still have never really gave it a proper playthrough. But like I said, I was pretty much onto the Sega CD and buying for the Super Nintendo, and a lot of the games after I bought, like, and those are ones that I bought early on in the console. That's what I'm saying. There's probably only another 8 or 9 games over there that I actually own. I know Turtles Tournament Fighters, Eternal Champions, Mortal Kombat 2, Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition. I know those 4 I bought back in the original era. I'm trying to think of what else. I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I mean, it was really... I did not buy Mortal Kombat 3 for the Genesis back in the day. I bought Mortal Kombat 3 on the Super Nintendo because it played smoother and the sound was better. But I love playing Mortal Kombat 2 on the Genesis, though. I got really good at it for a while. I could be Shang Tsung, and I knew how to morph into everybody else. So basically, if you took Shang Tsung, you could be anybody, you know, or use anybody's fatalities and stuff. It was pretty awesome. So I'm trying to think, though, really. I mean, Sonic 2 was the pack-in. I don't know, really. I mean, I have 5 here, and that was 4. I told you, there's probably only about 12 or 14 games, so I really can't think of much else that we had back in the day. Actually, Phantasy Star 3 and 2, I did buy in the era at Funko Land. But, so I guess you could include those, but I'm talking the ones that I bought brand new at the store. Beavis and Butthead, I see from here. I don't know, though. That might be about it, really. I mean, yeah. I don't see much else. So, I mean, really, I only had about 10 or 12 games for the Genesis before I bought the Sega CD, or while I bought it and bought, you know, a few games for it. I mean, but really, once I bought the Sega CD, it was lights out for buying cartridges for the Sega. So, that's my ramblings. And it looks like I've gone about 45 minutes because of... not technical difficulties, just me rambling on about working at Hardee's and different junk. And I will visit that again and talk about some of the people I worked with and the jobs I did there, and how I became a low-level manager there even for a year before I moved on. And we'll get into that some other time and just do a video just talking about that, just kind of reminiscing, I guess, me reminiscing. The only other people that really know about it are my roommate that I lived with for years, Jake, and his cousin. They're basically brothers, Vince. They both worked there during that time. My sister actually worked there for a few months. But yeah, it was crazy. So, and fun times, good times, but a lot of frustrating times as well, just because of the type of job it was. But we won't talk about that anymore. We're not going to talk about it in this video. So I'm going to sign off. There could be only 5. Those are my 5. The Sega CD cut will be harder, but because I think some of the games on the Sega CD are actually superior on the 3DO, I might actually pick them for the 3DO. There would be 5. There can only be 5, so it might make the Sega CD cut not quite as difficult. The Super Nintendo I didn't want to do right now because it's going to mirror in a few aspects the Nintendo. There can be only 5, so I figured we'd break it up with the Genesis. So, yeah, we stretched this sucker out. So I'm going to sign off. Thanks for coming by as usual. I know the rambling's not always the highlight of the video. Sometimes you just want to see the games. Get to the games! But, anywho, we'll sign off. Thanks for coming by. Leave a comment. Tell me what some of your favorite Genesis games were and are, and what your 5 would be if you want to. If not, it's all good, but I'd like to hear at least what some of your favorite Genesis games are. So I'll sign off. Thanks for coming by. I know, like I said, there are other ones like Mutant League Football and Speedball 2 and a couple other games, but I bought those like later on. This is kind of back with the original. And Mutant League Football is an awesome game, and you know there are other games, like I said, Comic Zone. I really like the Vector Mans, Earthworm Jim, you know, but this is the cut. So before I change my mind, I'm going to sign off. So thanks for coming by, folks. See you next video, and we'll keep getting them done if you keep wanting to see them. So thanks. Bye.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?